Hi folks, my name's Trevor Covich and we're coming to you from the Olympic Peninsula. Just got done with the day's fishing, and so like many guys out here on the OP, we're going to sit back, we're going to have a beer, and we're going to stock our boxes. And right now, since we're all stocked up on steelhead flies, we're going to go into a short tie session on Sculpin patterns. And spending 9 seasons on the Connect Talk, I've had a chance to perfect a Sculpin pattern from going from a large size, a much harder casting style Sculpin to a much smaller, easy casting, lighter, sparse materials with the same amount of movement in the water. Also, going away from barbell eyes, which I believe can mess with hookups a little bit. And so instead of barbell eyes for weight, what we've done is we've put beads on these Sculpins right here, okay? And what that bead does is it gives this fly weight for casting and then depth in the water. Also, it creates a great shoulder for this ostrich right here, okay? And this is going to make this thing flare out, and it's going to make it pop and drop with every strip or every mend you do with the spay rod or a single hand rod. And so we're going to go straight into tying an olive Sculpin. This is my best Sculpin, so we're going to go on from here. Hope you like it. So for this Sculpin pattern, we're not going to get too extensive on the materials, but you'll need a couple. And so to start off, you just want, a shank of some sort. Doesn't matter what hook. I like a straight eye myself. And next, of course, we're going to need copper tinsel. This is going to give the back end of the body, followed by your ice dubbing right here, lighter color to mimic the underside of a Sculpin, followed by, of course, your beads in either a red to represent a gill, or depending on the fly you're using, you're going to change colors. Next, of course, being our plumes here, and these are OPST plumes, come in a variety of colors, mostly barred, some spotted. Following that, of course, is our barred olive rabbit strip right here, cut to length. And finally, we just have our rabbit that is just been cut off the hide for the most part and spun into a dubbing loop. And so, since we've got this thing set up on the vise, this bead's on here, and see it's kind of just rolling loose in there, and that's okay. And so first we're just going to start out with our thread here. And so I'm using ultra thread 140 here, just because I like to crank on it. The 70 is a little light for me, and if you want flies that are going to last, go with a little heavier here. And so first and foremost, we're gonna create a little bit of a thread base here, just for our braided line on the back, just for some articulation here. This doesn't give me too much trouble. Here we go. So we're just gonna make a loop with our braid here, and we're just going to lay it down and just get a couple cranks on it. That way it's in there kind of where we want it to be, but we want it loose enough to where we can still slide it where it needs to be. So with these, depend on the size of Sculpin you're doing. For the majority of the time, it's probably going to be around a size 4. Size 4 owner is what we like to go for with those lower river trout. And so I'm gonna keep that loop right around in this range right here, just so you can fit that size 4 on there. And so once we've got that, I'm just gonna give a couple much stronger cranks. That way we make sure this thing is locked in place here. And so I'm just gonna wrap this thing forward here. And since we're dealing with trout here too, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to cut this. I'm not going to run it through the eye. With salmon, and steelhead and things that with a much stronger pull, you know, I'll loop this all the way through the eye, but instead we're just going to make this our base. And I'm going to really crank it in tight. If you crank this in tight enough, it will not pull loose. And so, like I said, we're just going to make a good body on here, nice and strong. Because the next thing we're going to put on there is our under section, or the shine for our body. And we were talking about with sculpin patterns being like a yellowish, sometimes white, sometimes copper color. And with the water that I fish, I like going with the copper color because it's not too crazy as far as a shine. I don't think it spooks fish. And so we're just gonna add this copper piece, and we're gonna wrap this up all the way almost to right behind the bead here. And so it's a nice, beautiful copper look to it. We're just going to wrap this piece all the way forward until we think we're good. A couple more wraps. I want this to be perfect here. Okay, so I would say right about there. You see how much room we have between there and the eye of the hook. So I'm just going to tie this off. Trim off. And then next thing we're going to do is we need something to not only create more of a full body effect, but also something to stop this bead right here. So see how this bead is still swinging free here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our ice dubbing and pheasant tail color. We're going to pull off a chunk here. You know, fairly good sized piece, but what we're going to do is we're going to do a dubbing loop, okay? We're going to go like that. We're not going to make this too long, but we're going to do just like so. Wrap forward, grab your spinner. Then we're going to put that in there just like so. And what I'm going to do with this is let's just spread it out just a little bit. Want to kind of even it out so when it comes time to spin this thing, we're sitting right and tight. So right there is about good. We're going to pinch this piece here and spin. Okay, and spin again and pull tight. And see how that sucks in just like that? Now I'm going to take these scissors and we're just going to kind of pick this out because we want some of this, you know, some of these materials that got wound up inside to just kind of get loose and spread out a little bit more. Just give a better effect, and also any loose materials gets discarded. A couple more spins and we're ready to go. We can start wrapping. And so you can go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. You want to create a pretty solid bead of this. You can pull this material back and get it heavy. See how it's making a nice thick shoulder behind this bead here. And so after we're up, if you look at where the end of your dubbing stops and where this bead is, it should be just enough room between where your dubbing stops and this bead starts for just a single bead. And that's when you know you have enough room, because that bead is going to end up sliding backwards almost on top of the entire piece of dubbing and stopping right there. That's going to be your stop. And so you're going to tie that off. Excellent. Go ahead and trim this piece, and then we're going to take this bead and we're going to slide it back. And see how it slides back and it sinks right in there? Perfect. And now we have all this room right here to add the rest of our materials. And this is going to slam right together after this. So again, start right in front of the bead. Get that thing tied in there. And now what we're going to do is just like before, we're going to make this dubbing loop, because what we're going to be putting in now is our ostrich and our plumes. And so right here, what we're going to be using is barred ostrich and an olive look to it, just like that. And see how on these ones right here we have this really nice material. It's fairly long, so we can cut it to length on what we're going with. And so I'm just going to take a bit off here first. Excellent. So now you have your bunch of ostrich. And so what I'll do actually to make sure all these line up is I'll take this and I'll get it pinched, and I'll grab these pieces and I'll pull it up to where they are fairly even. Okay, if you try and get this stuff perfect, you're going to be here all night. You just want to get it close, because once it's moving, it's not going to matter. The fish sees it and it's going to pounce. And so once we get these things pretty close to lined up, now you have to decide how far back you want this. So you can line this up just like so. So I want these going almost just past my copper tinsel there, just a little bit further. So about right in there is where we're looking. And so I'll take that, stick it right in my dubbing loop here. And what you want to do is you want to give this a couple twists before you just let go. If you just let go without giving a couple twists, this material right here will fall and it'll spread apart and you'll have to start all over again. So just give it a couple. That way it holds it in there tight, just like so. So now you can take your scissors and trim that far back. And so now from here, see how it's still bunched up? You can now, since it's fairly tight, you can spread all these materials out so it's a little more even, so it's still not bunched up. So I'm just going to spread it a little bit more, just like so. Okay. Excellent. So now same thing, you're going to spin these. Okay, you want to spin it enough to where it's tight. If you spin it too tight, your thread will probably break. So we're just going to give a couple more spins on it, just like so. Excellent. And so now we're ready to start wrapping. And so just like with any hackle, you're going to pull these back just a little bit. Okay. We're going to wrap this till all this material is gone. And every time you make a wrap, make sure you're pulling back. That way all these strands are laying backwards. And even if they don't lay backwards, once you go to tie off with your thread, they're all going back anyway. And so since we've wrapped up, we're going to just pin those back, tie off. And trim. And see how these kind of stick up like that? That's all right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pull these back, and we're just going to tighten this. We're just going to keep going back. And what that's going to do is your thread's going to go directly over your ostrich. And the further back that you tie, the more these things will actually pop up, and it'll make, as I said, just makes a perfect shoulder behind this bead. And this red bead right here represents our gills, remember? And so now that we have our ostrich, our black and olive barred ostrich here, we're going to go into the next piece, which is our rabbit strip. The best way you want to line this rabbit strip up is you look at the hide on the bottom side and the back by the tail, and you want to line that hide, or the end of that hide, up just past the end of your braided loop. Okay, I like something, again, that matches the rest of our sculpin, which is olive. I got this nice barred rabbit strip in the back, and so we're just going to extend this just a little further than our braid, just like that, okay? As soon as you get that thing lined up to where you want it, like so, you're going to crank this thing down and just do one or two just to make sure that it's lined up right where you want it to be. Once it's lined up, time to put it in the vise here and crank a little bit. You just want to keep sucking back a little on the thread there. There we go. So that's nice and tight. Perfect. You can go ahead and trim off any excess hide you got here, which isn't a lot. We still want the front of our sculpin to be clean here. And so we're just gonna keep wrapping the thread. And so now we're ready for our last step. And again, yes, you've guessed it, we're gonna do a dubbing loop. So again, dubbing loop all the way on the front here. Make it medium to longer. It just depends on how big you want the head on your sculpin to be. And so we're going to take our cut off rabbit here, and we've got a big bunch of it that I pre-cut. So same thing, you can stick this thing right in the middle, and you can adjust this however long you want the length. If you want a really short thick head, you'll keep this thing right in the middle. If you want it longer and wispier, you'll pull these tips out quite a bit. Okay, but either way, once we've got it in there, we're going to kind of spread it out a little bit here. That way we have more to work with. It goes on there nice and even as well. Okay, and it's also the length we're looking for. A lot of times when they're spinning this too, your ostrich is going to want to get caught up in this rabbit. So that's a constant battle, is keeping this away from when you're spinning. So since this is spread out and the right length of what we want, let's just go with this. So again, pinch this piece here and spin. Spin again. And it's going to suck right in there just like so. See how this ostrich is still wanting to get caught up in there, which is okay. And so now that we have this in here, same thing, we're going to take our scissors. We're just going to lightly pick this material out. We want all these fibers out nice and neat so they're even and we can wrap them, and the finish on this sculpin is good. So after we do that, you think you picked it out enough, I want you to give it a couple more spins. Boop, just like so. And now we're ready to finish this sculpin off. So again, every single time you make a wrap, you pull. Okay? So wrap and pull. Wrap and pull. All the way until you're either out of material or you're out of real estate, which is coming very soon here. So we're going to get all this gone here. So there's that. So we're just going to tie this off. Like so. And as always, the last and final step other than your head cement is the good old whip finish. Excellent. And there you have the sculpin. Small, sparse, meant to stick as many trout as possible. It's not big, it won't spook fish. It's got a perfect amount of weight on the back, no big barbell eyes to to mess up hookups. So when this fish takes it, either in the back where the hook's going to be, where the trailing hook is in a good position, or in the front, if that fish takes from the front, it's going to slide right off right into the transition hook. Perfect. And that is the olive sculpin.